Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Back again to pattern number 4, in which we have SVO, that's to say the subject plus the verb plus the direct object. In pattern number 4, the type of the verb which is can be seen here is that of a transitive verb, which is different from pattern number 1, which is the intransitive verb. Whether I say transitive or intransitive, I mean action verbs, whether with reference to physical action or mental action. Okay, so we say that transitive verb is the verb that can be completed or followed by a noun or a noun phrase. That's to say, whenever I mention a sentence like the girl bought and I stop talking, I stop talking, I feel that there is something missing. The sentence is in need of a complete of the verb. So the verb should be completed by a noun, a pronoun, a noun phrase, to give a meaningful sentence. Okay, so it means what? That the verb here is not self-sufficient. It is not enough or adequate to mention the subject plus its verb. Rather, we are in need of something else to complete the meaning of the sentence. So the girl bought, and full stop, this means the girl bought what? The boy met, and full stop, the boy met whom? Okay, so I'm in need of what? A noun phrase or a pronoun to complete the meaning of the sentence. So the transitive verb as such is completed by a noun or a noun phrase or even a pronoun to make the sentence meaningful and grammatical. So the completer here of the verb, that's to say the noun phrase here, is called as the direct object. So what occurs after the transitive verb is called as the direct object. So the grammatical meaning of the subject in this part, in pattern number 4, is the performer of the action, the doer of the action. Who is responsible now for buying the dress? Of course, the subject, that is the girl in this example. Okay, so the grammatical meaning of the subject in pattern 4 is similar to the grammatical meaning of the subject in pattern number 1 with intransitive verb. Okay, what about the third element in pattern number 4, I mean the direct object? What's the grammatical meaning of the direct object in pattern number 4? It has the meaning, that is the grammatical meaning, I mean the undergoer of the action. It means what? That it goes under the action performed by the subject. Okay, or it is here the direct object could have the grammatical meaning of that which is affected by the action of the verb phrase. It means it is under the effect of the action. But sometimes we can see not all direct objects to experience such an effect. Now in a sentence, the girl bought a dress, so the dress is under the effect or under the action of the subject. It is affected by the subject, the girl. Okay? But once I say, for example, we heard the radio, we, the subject, here the transitive verb. Why? Because it is followed by the direct object, the radio. Here the radio, what is the direct object? Yet still here it doesn't always experience any actual action. That's to say, it shows no real action. Okay? So, but it is what? The direct object of the sentence. Okay. We said what the direct object can have different forms. Different forms different forms related to the direct object. I can see a pronoun occurring as the direct object. I see a noun occurring as the direct object. A noun phrase functioning as a direct object. So the girl bought a dress. A dress is the noun phrase functioning as a direct object. The girl met Layla. Layla is a direct object in the form of a proper noun. اسم علم. Okay? Sometimes we see what? We see a pronoun occurring as a direct object. I met Ellie. I met him. I met Ellie. I met him. So this means what? That I'm going to see pronouns functioning as a direct object. And which type of pronouns? We are going to see personal pronouns in the objective form, the same as him, her, them, it. Okay? So they function as me function as direct objects of the sentence following the transitive verbs. Okay. Whether I say a noun phrase, or a pronoun functioning as a direct object, the two nouns, the subject as well as the direct object, both of them have different references. They don't refer to the same person. They don't refer to the same thing. Two different nouns. So the girl bought a dress. The girl and a dress, both of them, they don't have the same reference. Okay? But sometimes we can see that the subject and the direct object might refer to the same person, or here we can say that the subject as well as the direct object have the same reference. Where can we see such a reference, similar reference? We see it if the direct object is one of two. How is that? If the direct object is a reflexive pronoun, the same as I say herself, himself, myself, themselves. Okay, so this means what? That they have the subject plus its direct object have the same reference. The same as we say she saw herself. She and herself refer to the same person. Layla saw herself. So herself is Layla and Layla is herself. Okay? The lifeguards splash themselves. So themselves and lifeguards, they have the same reference. So if the direct object is a reflexive pronoun, this means that this direct object refers to the subject, and this subject has the same reference with the direct object. Okay, this is number one. If it is a reflexive pronoun, there might exist some sort of similarity between the subject and the direct object. The second type of pronouns that can function as a direct object and have the same reference with the subject is a reciprocal pronoun. A reciprocal pronoun, the same as each other or one another. Each other and one another. The way each other and one another, they can function as direct object. Once they function as direct object, this means that they have the same reference with the subject. Okay, so they found each other. Tom and Sam found each other. So each other refer to Tom and Sam, and Tom and Sam refer to each other. They fought they fought one another. They fought one another. Again, one another has the same reference with the subject, that is they. So in these two cases, we can see that the subject and the direct object have the same reference. Away from these two types of pronouns, we see that the subject and the direct object are different as far as reference is concerned. Okay? Sometimes we can see that certain verbs might function differently. I mean, certain action verbs. For the majority of action verbs, we can see that they can be both transitive and intransitive. So most of the action verbs, this means what? That most of the action verbs can be both transitive and intransitive. So whenever I say she sang beautifully, intransitive verb, I can say she sang a beautiful folk, for example, song. So in the first example, she sang beautifully, it is a intransitive verb. But in she sang a beautiful folk song, here sang here is what considered as a transitive verb. Okay, the first one is pattern number 1. The second one is pattern number 4. So here sing could be transitive and intransitive. Once it is followed by a noun phrase, so it is called as transitive. Once it is followed by just an adverbial or without an adverbial, so it means it is what? Intransitive. There is no need for a completer of the subject. Okay. So we say what? The majority of action verbs could be both transitive and intransitive. But relatively few of the English verbs can be only intransitive, and few of them could be only transitive. That's to say, a small group of action verbs can be only transitive. Another small group of action verbs can be transitive. Okay, so if it is only intransitive, we can say the example, the ship had vanished. So with vanish as a verb, the meaning will be completed. Let's say ended. So there is no need to add a completer of the noun. Okay. Sometimes we can see a verb that is only transitive, the same as we say we enjoyed the party. We enjoyed the party. We, the subject, enjoyed the verb. The party is the object. Okay. So again, relatively few verbs can be only intransitive, others can be only intransitive, but the majority of the English verbs can be both transitive and intransitive. Okay, this is a relation to being transitive, intransitive only, or both. One of the characteristics of English transitive verbs is that they have two forms with reference to voice. That's to say, the sentence with a transitive verb can be changed from an active sentence into a passive sentence. So transitive verbs have two forms. The first one is the active one. The second is the passive form. Okay. And we have, for example, we have rules to say that the sentence can be changed from active into passive. Why do we say that transitive verbs have two forms, the active and passive? Because we know that transitive verbs are followed by direct objects. In order to change a sentence from active into passive one, we are in need of what? Of a direct object. So this is why we say that transitive verbs are of two forms. Of course, putting in your mind that not all English sentences can be changed from active into passive, though they have direct objects. With a group of verbs, like for example have, consist of, possess, includes, though they are followed by direct objects, yet still such a kind of sentences cannot be changed into passive form. Okay, so there will be certain rules to be followed in order to change the sentence from active into passive. But keep in mind that whenever I change, I should put in my consideration that there must exist a direct object. That's to say, the sentence must contain a transitive verb. Okay, so if I'm going to change the sentence from active into passive, the first thing is that I'm going to pick up the direct object of the active sentence in order to be the subject of the passive sentence. This is number one. Number two, the form of the verb will be changed. How is that? I'm going to look at the tense of the sentence then I'm going to add be plus past participle form of the verb. So, the chef cooked the meal, so the meal will be the subject of the passive sentence. The tense of the sentence is that of the past simple, so it will be changed into be plus past participle. Be, we will select was. Why? Because cooked, not cooks, for example. Okay, so the meal was cooked. So a change from cooked into was cooked, to say that it is changed from active into passive. That's to say that it is done, it was done by someone else. Okay, this is as far as the form of the verb is concerned. What else? The subject of the active sentence, that's the chef, might be the object of the passive sentence. Which means what? I might mention the subject of the active sentence preceded by the preposition by, and it is written between two brackets to say it is optional. I might mention it or I might not mention it. Why? Because it depends. If I would like to clarify the subject, I might add by plus the subject of the active sentence. So what do we have here? We have a shift, a change, that's to say in the grammatical meanings of the subject and the direct object. So the grammatical meaning of the subject in the active sentence is that the performer of the action, whereas the grammatical meaning of the direct object in the active sentence is that undergoer of the action. In passive sentences, the performer of the action, that is the chef, will be changed, grammatically speaking, as far as meaning is concerned, into the object of the proposition. Okay? And the undergoer, which is the meal, is going to be the subject of the passive sentence, not the performer of the action. Because if I'm going to tackle it again and again, whether I say the chef cooked the meal or the meal was cooked by the chef, the two sentences carry the same meaning. Which meaning is that there is an action done by the chef, okay? But a change in positions, a change in functions, as far as being the subject of the passive sentence or the subject of the active sentence, okay? Let's now take certain examples to change them into passive sentences. Okay, let's take the examples which are mentioned. Let me see, where are they? Okay, here the driver turned the car around. The driver turned the car around. So the driver is the subject, turned is the verb, transitive verb, the car is the direct object. Okay, how to change it? The car will be the subject of the passive sentence, Okay, the tense of the sentence is what? Is past simple. So turned will be was turned. Okay, turned will be was turned. And I can say by the driver. So the car was turned sharply around by the driver. So what do we do here? We change the positions of the subject and the direct object and change the form of the verb here as being be plus past participle form of the verb. Okay. If I would like to change from passive into active, suppose that I have a sentence sentence like the flag had been lowered. The flag had been lowered. That's to say someone, this means what? Someone had lowered the flag. Someone had lowered the flag. The flag had been lowered. It means what? That someone had lowered the flag. Okay? So this is the way how to change from active into passive or from passive into active. Okay, there is something that is mentioned on page 236 concerning the substitution of be by get. Leave this. We will stick just to the change from active into passive with reference to pattern number 4. This is the end of pattern number 4. I will see you with reference to pattern number 5. Thank you for listening.